Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so today's agenda, I have a slight concern that it's going to be a bit rushed. I have allowed 20 minutes for discussion at the end, but I'm hoping that nonetheless we will have time to answer all of your questions. So I'll do a quick introduction and latest developments in our work, what we've done over the summer. And from 11, Joy will join us to discuss proposed changes to the DCC data management template and in general to the project details page. We are then going to give you a quick update on where we are with the funded templates, particularly the UKRI templates. I'm sorry if the focus appears a bit on UK funded templates, but this is where we currently have, I wouldn't say a bit of a problem, an issue, let's put it that way. And then we have 20 minutes for discussion. In fact, we can bite into the summary as well. And I anticipate you'll have a few questions about the suggested changes to the generic DCC data management template. I was going to say the session will be recorded. Oh, here's Joy joining us earlier. Okay, so, but we've already started recording, and there is a code of conduct. I don't think I need to remind you. You are actually kind of family. You know each other. Okay, so in the latest developments, okay, so since the last community meeting in May, this is where we stated our goals. And in fact, we are just continuing, all of our development is aiming towards this. So our goals are interoperability and integration with other tools, automation. So integration will not just contribute to standardization, but also cut down on the workload for the end user. Alignment with RDA data management plan common standards, alignment with FAIR principles, facilitate open science, and in general, measuring against the 10 principles for machine actionable data management plans. You will probably know the paper. If one of you don't, or Glenys could copy and paste the URL in the chat. So essentially, every time we put something on one of our development sprints, these are the goals that we have in mind. And when we discussed this in May, it seems that you agreed that these should be our goals. As ever, please feel free to come in and say you're focusing too much on this, or you're focusing too much on that. Please move faster on this front, etc. For the time being, I understand the interoperability and automation are your goals as well, because when we rolled out a new feature, you were celebrating, and if anything, shouting for more PIDs and DOIs. Okay, so over the summer, what did we do? We released a new feature, and this is the DOIs for research outputs. Glenys was the lead developer on this. It's a machine actionable feature, and it's an integration with the OpenAI Graph Search API. And what users can do, they enter a digital object identifier for their research output, which can be a data set, publication, a piece of software, a variety of outputs. And the DOI retrieves the data and automatically fills in the details of the research output. So it's just not just integration, but also automation, which cuts down on the workload for the end user. We're really pleased when we did this. It works smoothly, and thank you so much to our developers for pulling this through. Okay, the ongoing work. So what is on our current development sprint. So integration with the research organization registry. The prototype will be available by the end of the sprint, which is the 30th of September, as I put on the slide. It's taking longer than anticipated because the ROR API isn't working as we expected. And we're also having issue with the profiles of organizations that already exist on our database. But we hope to have a prototype available by the 30th of September, then go into testing and release the feature by the end of November. Fingers crossed. And for those who may not remember what this was about, it is to do with when the user creates an account and they try to select a research organization for themselves, they will find it on a drop-down list. At the moment, if the profile of the registry doesn't exist on DMPonline, they have to select organization other, and this confuses users. But we hope that from end of November, they will be able to select any organization that exists in ROR from a drop-down list. Integration with RSpace. RSpace, you possibly know the tool. Some of you may have used it. This is an eLab notebook. And we will be able to feed DMP data management plans into RSpace. This again is taking longer than expected because we needed user level authentication as part of the API. And because we're trying to develop this, we decided that actually it's best if we merge API version 0 with API version 1, merge the capabilities, because at the moment they do similar things but somewhat different, and this confuses you, organizational administrators. So we thought we'll develop. Brenda is in the waiting room. We will develop API version 2, and you will use one API only. I don't know if you want to add anything, Dawn, to this, in case I've missed a crucial point.
No, I think that's fine. Yeah, you've covered all the essential parts.
Yeah, so API version 0 is the one that downloads answers to questions. API version 1 is the one that is aligned with the metadata standards but doesn't download answers to questions. And I think, they do similar things but not quite the same. And the API version 2 will do all of this and be aligned to the metadata standards. As I said, the current development sprint ends on the 30th of September 2024, and I hope we will report a lot of good news to you. And we will discuss with you the new development priorities for 2024-2025, and we will agree them with you at our next user group on 22nd of October 24. I'll give you the date of all of our forthcoming meetings at the end of this session. So if you feel that our development has been a bit slow, we've also been perfectionists. I have to say, every time we've come across issues such as I think it's best if we fix the APIs before we do this integration, we've actually taken it on. Okay, let me move on to the next. Okay, so this may seem like a small issue to go over during this meeting. This is an additional plan ID field, adding it to the project details page. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because we're going to talk about the project details page when we talk about the template. So what is this? Currently, you may be aware that there is a DMPonline plan ID page, plan ID field, but it is editable. and that is wrong, and it's also confusing for the end user. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a non-editable, I don't know if you see my mouse, a non-editable plan ID field. And this is going to show the plan ID as assigned by the system, by DMPonline. So that people know this is the plan ID. I can't change this. If I need to contact help at DMPonline, if I need to send a URL, this is definitely the plan. Then we're going to add, some people have requested that we add an additional plan ID. Perhaps call it project ID, and this should be editable. They suggested that this could be a local organized ID assigned by the university. The university may have its own database of research projects. It could be an integration, such as an integration with RAID. We can take questions on this very quickly, but it's one of those things that is confusing, because what the project page displays is in fact, so when people create a new project, the current field, DMPonline project ID, is actually editable. Many users don't realize this and don't touch it, but some users have figured this out and touch it and enter another ID. When they contact us, they say, well, my project ID is this, and we can't quite find it. And they say, no, the project ID is the one that you see in your URL, but it's not really a reliable indicator, to get your project ID from the URL. So this is why we're trying to tidy it up, to make it clearly visible that this is the plan ID assigned by the system, and if you need an additional plan ID, you can add it there. Now, the name for these fields was suggested. Instead of DMPonline plan ID, it's DMPonline ID, and instead of additional plan ID, which is something we put for this session, we can call it project ID. I don't know how you feel about this. If I have time to take a couple of quick questions. Let's see. Would be helpful to capture the grant code ID that is assigned by the finding agency. Yeah. Yes, Ruth, thank you. That's correct. And that's precisely what was suggested. Soile?
Hi. I'm asking, is this only for numbers? Or can you add?
No. The DMPonline plan ID, this is a number, right? This is what
Yes.
the system assigns, and that won't be editable. But the additional plan ID is whatever the user needs to enter.
Yes.
It's fully editable. And if you need potentially an integration with your own CRIS local naming system, it could be whatever your local naming system assigns.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Have some time. Okay. It's being a bit slow. Okay. Oh, Sectigo certificates. I thank you so much, everybody, for your help with this over the summer. And I'm sorry it turned out to be more, how can I put it, more adventurous than we would have liked. So this summer, we switched from Let's Encrypt certificates to Sectigo certificates. Some of you have asked for this because you felt Sectigo more secure. This is valid for users with enhanced customizations who have customized URLs. The Sectigo certificates, unfortunately, well, they are good, but currently require updates once a year. Okay, so once a year we will be in touch with you and say, could you please update your CNAME entry? Unfortunately, there are discussions of renewing them 3 times a year. There's nothing finalized yet. But I don't think any of you would like to be contacted 3 times a year and get in touch with your IT department and could you please update the key for the Sectigo certificate. I don't know how you feel, but I have a feeling this will be too inconvenient. I think your IT department will get fed up pretty quickly. Where the reason why the switch turned out to be less pleasant and less smooth than we would have liked is because everybody, including the Sectigo authorities, assumed that we have full control. By we, mean DMPonline, we have full control of the URLs. That the URLs are what are called wildcards of DMPonline.dcc.ac.uk. As I say here, some.org, DMPonline, dcc.ac.uk. They didn't anticipate that you, the customer, would have full control. That is something that you own. Therefore, you are the ones who have to put the key in place. They assume that, you know, we put the keys on our load balancer. And they didn't give us the right advice. They said, oh, you don't have to worry. At X date, you can just put these keys in place and it would all go very, very smoothly. This is why we ran out of time. So I'm sorry about that assumption. But I think, and again, I think we have a couple of minutes for this. I think we've decided that from now on, although we will offer people customized URLs, there will have to be wildcards of the DMPonline domain. Because if indeed it's going to go to updating 3 times a year, then it's going to become very inconvenient for the customer. Existing URLs will continue unless you want to change to a wildcard type of URL and use the existing and put a forwarding procedure from your existing URL. For the current certificates that are in place until July next year, we will be in touch with you 30 days prior to expiry. That's what we're advised to do, and we will ask you please follow the following procedure, renew your CNAME entry as follows. I don't know how convenient you will find it and how you feel about perhaps giving up on your existing URLs and putting a forwarding procedure to a URL of type some.org.dmponline.dcc.ac.uk. This is something we can discuss with you individually, but I see there are... Okay. Speaker of English. Joachim, you said something, not a native speaker of English, but would perhaps additional PLAD ID be misinterpreted as ID of another DMP, even outside DMPonline? Oh, sorry, this is to do with DMP. With additional PLAD ID, we're going to do it a project ID and provide a wildcard explanation of what that is. Is that okay? So when people hover over the field, they will get a tooltip explanation like they do in many fields on DMPonline. So coming back to Sectigo certificates, I wonder how you feel about this. Yeah, we'll be in touch with you and try and discuss perhaps putting a forwarding procedure. But if you want to hold on to your existing URLs, I'm just warning you that it will be a case of updating them once a year. Richard Grimes, would institutions have the choice of continuing with the current URLs but having to update them potentially 3 times a year, or switching to a subdomain of DMPonline and letting you handle the certificates updating? Yes, you would have that choice. As I said, so Richard, you could switch to a wildcard URL, and your existing URL could just do a forward if you still want to advertise and your existing URL is dear to you. But from now on, to new subscribers, we won't be offering fully customized URLs. My boss turned out to be very keen to retain the URL with our institution suffix. Okay, Mariel, but it could become inconvenient with the renewal. As long as you're aware of that, we will do our very, very best to help you try and keep track of all the update dates. All I can say is thank you so much again for working so hard and catching up so quickly, and putting in place the CNAME entries. And this is where the misunderstanding occurred, even from our own IT department, even from Certigo Authority. They thought we have full control of the URLs, and this is why the certificates essentially expired before we could do anything. I will relay this internally. Richard relays, see what is preferred. I expect a similar reaction as Mario. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay. Let me see. How much more time do I have? Okay. Updates. This is so we can move on to the move on to the update to the template. Since we have 3 minutes, do you have any questions so far about development work, about... Teresa, updating the Certigo SSL certificates might be easier if you provide background information about the customized URLs and how they relate to the certificates. Our central IT did not understand what you were talking about, and it took some time to explain it to them. Right. Do you know exactly what they didn't understand, Teresa? We can take this offline, but yeah, we can send better... we can
Thank you.
send
Very
better...
briefly,
Yeah?
they just have different routines and they talk a different language.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I had no idea what it was about. In the end, we sorted it out, but it took a bit of time to get there. So, yeah. So therefore, a bit of background information might be helpful, at least here at our place.
Yeah, Mario,
Thanks.
Okay, Teresa, noted. We have written down some documentation for ourselves as well. It got confusing for us as the request to approve the URL went to a different group and then had to contact us and what it was about. Yeah, we find that different IT departments talk different languages. Similar experience for Joachim. Yeah. This is why we think it would have been better if from the very beginning we would have made the decision of using wildcard URLs rather than allow full customization, because different IT departments have different procedures, different kinds of certificates, different kind of languages, as you say, and that's right. Our IT department is quite large with many subgroups, so is ours. And it takes a while to find the right people. Yeah. Yeah, I know all about this. Okay, I think we can, unless you have further questions, we can move on to the DCC data management plan template and propose the updates to it. Okay, Joy, you're here, yeah?
Yeah, hi, I'm here, Deanna.
Okay, so that you can chip in when I'm not explaining. Okay, so so the proposed updates to DCC template, I'm going to start with the project details page. This is not necessarily pertinent to DCC template only. This will apply to all projects. I could, do you all know what project details page is? If I go, this is it, yeah? I've inserted a screenshot. So it's all plans. After user has created a new plan, all plans have this project details irrespective of the template they're based on. Okay, so the dates, it's just more about tidying up on standardization. It was suggested that we use ISO format. And we include some tooltips to explain, well, if you don't know these, don't worry, you can do them later. Research domains, it's just a matter of tidying up a bit. There is a duplicate entry for other social sciences. We didn't spot this, I apologize, but I don't think they need revising. Glenys, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat what they're based on. They're based on the Frascati manual. If you think we should use a different kind of research domains, different source for research domains, please let us know. The ID, as I explained above, we will have different fields for project ID. We'll have 2 of them. Ethical concerns, we just have to improve tooltip, because at the moment, we just ask people to tick, the box if you think your research apples may have ethical concerns, but we don't explain what this means. Funding status, we have several choices, but it was proposed that perhaps we align this with the award life cycle, and we say application stage in award or post-award. I think, Joy, you suggested this by award life cycle. Where is this taken from? Where are these entries taken from?
Yeah, I mean, this is just the kind of standard kind of life cycle of research proposals. I think it's probably worth mentioning that the recommendations you are seeing here are very much just the viewpoints of myself and Lawrence Horton. We were asked to take a look at the current template, and just because we haven't looked at it in a while, just to kind of see how it looks. We've been involved in a lot of big research projects in the European Commission landscape, and we just wanted to see how the current generic template stands up and whether something might need to change. So this is very much just our initial thoughts. It's all open for discussion. These are not by any means cast in stone. It's here for you to make your own views known. My feeling with the life cycle, the research life cycle, I think the current thing is funded or unfunded. And I can see the value of that. I think it works if you've got research projects that are not funded by an external funder. That's a useful distinction. But if we're looking at keeping the DMP updated over time, it may be that you want to update this as you go along. So maybe when you start, it's at the pre-award stage. Then you can make a distinction, hopefully, if it's been awarded, and at the end of it, post-award. So it's more a point of discussion, and whether it would align better with your institutional processes, things like CRIS systems and funding systems. So it's more a suggestion than anything at this point.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I still think you're quite right about this. Funding call, if there are, the reason why I'm saying you're right about this, if there are any standards to align to, let's align to them. By aligning to existing standards, you can facilitate integrations, and therefore automation. Okay, so a funding call, we were asked to provide a field to enter a funding call as a URL. Yeah, that's right. I think that's a very good idea. And a grant number URL, this is to add a tooltip to ask the user to enter the grant number as a URL. Now, if you remember, we did an integration over the summer for DMP Toolie for their machine actionable grant ID. And I think this field will become automated for everybody. We're currently looking at automating with the API for NWO, for the Dutch Funding Council, and for SWCRIS, for the Swedish Funding Council. So I think UKRI also has an API. I'm not sure how well it works, but we'll look into that as well. I think this field, ideally, you should enter the URL, and if anything, this field should pull details and update information for your for the whole of the project details page.
Yeah, I think just one thing to add on that is, I think when you're filling in the DMP, People might struggle with this because you don't know what the grant number will be until you get funded.
That's right.
So it's more just to update the guidance to make sure that people come back. And again, it's that living plan sort of mentality, is that they don't just do it at the application stage, that they come back and they flesh it out. So it's more, a lot of the suggestions we have are to do with the guidance rather than the additional fields. But
yeah, no, I'm just going through this. So this is the project details tab that I mentioned. Now there are proposed updates to the contributors tab, and the updates is to add new roles, and you can see it's co-investigator, you know, data steward, research software engineer. I see lots of comments coming in. An ORCID number. Now, I think what was being suggested is to make this machine actionable, to enable users to enter collaborators by entering the ORCID number if they know it. At the moment, it doesn't work like that. I don't have any strong feelings about this. It's not the top of our priorities when it comes to automation, but yeah, in theory, it could be done.
I mean, I think
yeah,
just to give a bit of rationale on the proposed roles there. So co-investigator, I think, is an important one because we do kind of need to make them clearly identifiable. Data steward, just because of the change in the landscape, this role is becoming increasingly important and recognized. So I think having that will be important. And similarly, the role of research software engineering, I think we're seeing a lot of emphasis on this role, and I think it would be good to have that sort of team approach better represented in the DMP. The ORCIDs, if it could be made possible, I think it just helps with credit, you know, and giving people the ability to track what they're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Yeah, it's a good, useful thing to have, but it's an integration that we'll have to work on. I don't anticipate being a difficult integration. It's just having to find the right API to do it. Okay, and in fact, we had been asked for ability to log in to DMPonline with your ORCID number as well. So that's on our to-do list. So given that that's on our to-do list, we'll look at a variety of integrations. Okay. So that's the contributors tab. You possibly all know it. It's just a screenshot to remind you which one is the contributors tab. Now we're coming to the content, the actual content of the DCC template. So I've put two fields, I've put side by side the current published template and the proposed template. As Joy emphasized, these are proposed changes. These are things that they're suggestions based on largely based on their work on major research projects funded by the European Commission, where new fields are emerging. For example, software. We should look more into software as a research output, and we should ask more questions related to that. So the data collection section seems to have one new question proposed. I think this question is to do with software. Will you generate any research software as part of your research? I don't know if you want to add any comments to that, Joy. What was your? I think it was as I explained. But
yeah, I mean, I think it is just the fact that research software is becoming an output in its own right, and there's a lot of emphasis being put on the value of reusing software. But it's also part of the reproducibility. So we need to get people thinking about this kind of stuff at the early stages. So, you know, data collection and generation, getting them thinking about software at this stage, I think would be useful. But again, it's a suggestion. Yeah,
software is among one of the categories in our research outputs, by the way. So you know that as well. Sorry, just as a reminder. The documentation metadata, again, I think this is more a reworded question plus an additional question about software, unless I misunderstood what you suggested. What documentation metadata will accompany the research software? If
believe this might have been one of Lawrence's suggestions, but I think it was more about just avoiding terms that maybe researchers aren't familiar with. And again, just changing the guidance to help them understand what we mean by metadata. I think it was purely just as simple as that.
Okay. Apologies about this. I'm not seeing one of the. Okay. I really hate this. Okay, and the ethics and legal compliance again has an additional question. How will you ensure your outputs are cited correctly? As Joy said, this is more about encouraging researchers to come back to the data management plan and continuously update it. I don't know if you want to add anything onto that, Joy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, again, just to get people thinking, and whether this is the right place for this or not is up for debate. But it's, you know, by using certain repositories, you will get a preferred license that people can point to. And I think it's just getting people to understand that you should be providing some preferred citation for your output so that you can get credit. So.
Okay. Okay, on storage and backup again, there will be another question, and this one is data repository. And again, Joy, maybe you can explain what motivated you and Lawrence to add this question.
Yeah, I mean, when I was going through the template, I realized when we don't really have a separate place to talk about repositories, and they do play a really huge role in making your research data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So I felt having it in the selection and preservation bit sort of made it feel very after the fact, and it can be. But I wanted to move it up to storage and backup as well, because I think, you know, in most research projects, we're publishing things all the time. It's not just at the end of the project that we do this. So again, you know, in most projects, we'll use things like Zenodo to publish our project outputs, but it was just hopefully giving people a chance to think about it there. I think the other potential value by moving this a little bit forward in the life cycle is really kind of trying to leverage this new functionality in DMPonline around the ability to add research outputs. So hopefully we can get people thinking about doing this as they go through the projects and not just, you know, at the end, because I think the real value of having the ability to record your outputs becomes this ability to have an inventory, if you like, of what came out of the project and the ability to be able to link between them. So that's the rationale really here, is just to try and get people thinking it's not just at the end stage, but there will be things happening over the course of the project.
Okay, selection and preservation remains unchanged unless you, the wider community, have suggestions. Data sharing, you, Joy and Lawrence, suggested to add a data availability statement.
Yeah, I think this is a really important one. I think so many of the funders are keen to see that published outputs have a data availability statement in it. So again, I think we want to make sure that people are thinking about this and just tying up bits of different practice. So publications and data need to be linked. That's essentially what we're trying to get across.
Okay, the last is responsibilities and resources. The two questions that are already there remain the same. Who will be responsible for updating the DMP and data cleaning costs? And yes, I'm particularly keen on data cleaning costs because we don't talk about this and the considerable cost involved in looking after the data and curating the data.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rationale here was just to kind of get people thinking about this, because there are generally ways you can reclaim the costs in your grant proposals. You can ask for these costs up front, but somebody needs to be responsible for trying to collect the information on the cost. So it's, again, just a reminder for people to think about this. The question about responsibility and updating is, again, just to get the mentality across that you should be coming back and updating it, and hopefully giving somebody that role to be thinking about this.
Okay, So these are the proposed, the suggested changes. I'm aware that from the current 13 questions, we're going to 20. We're adding 7 questions. We're proposing to add 7 questions. But we could, at the end of this, what we're going to do is perhaps send you a Word document, or put the DCC template on the test server and invite you to look at it on the test server, because there isn't enough time to also go through the suggested changes and the guidance we suggested comes with any of these questions, because we've also been through the guidance and improved the wording, you know, added questions to consider, things like that. So for questions, you know, how will the data be collected or created? We've added new questions to consider, and new links like fair-aware tools. I've just given you an example here, but there are some suggested changes to the guidance. It will be difficult to send it as a Word document for you to review, although it's not impossible. One other thing we can do, as I said, is to put it on the test server. We can't put it on the live server, because for you to see it, we'll have to publish the template, and once a user creates a plan on the published template, we can't delete it. So we can't do that. So we'll figure out the best way to send it to you, give you a deadline for commenting, and we would like your input on what works, what you think works, what you think doesn't. Lawrence, who can't be here because he's on Canadian time, said that we need to make the questions more less open, more concrete, because researchers won't understand a lot. Researchers need very clear guidance as to what it is exactly we're answering, what topics they have to answer. But you possibly know from looking at DMPonline that every question comes with guidance on what to consider, plus helpful links. Okay, I'll come back to the questions in a minute. We have time. So another thing that we've been asked to do is to add a new questionnaire, standard questionnaires to the template. The 2 standard questionnaires that we've been asked for are ethic assessments and digital protection impact assessments. These are very useful, and there are benefits and issues that come with them. I wouldn't call them difficulties, because nothing is insurmountable difficulty. We can do this if you want. The benefits: the DMP contains all information relevant to a project in one place. Users have the motivation to return to the DMP and fill these in. And one benefit I failed to add, I'm really sorry about that, I'll add it after the meeting, is the fact that the data stewards at institutions can provide feedback on these completed questionnaires. At the moment, people fill them in onto a variety, using Word documents, and send them via email, or put them in shared drives. It would be really good if we could have these in the actual project, among the project documentation, together with research outputs and the actual data management plan submitted to the funder. There are issues. There are too many tabs, and there are no standard ethical assessment questionnaires or DPIAs. And the ones that have been sent as examples by my colleague Kerry Miller, for example, I hope she won't mind me quoting her, are quite long. I've seen ethical assessments, the ones I've found on the internet, with 90+ questions. So I will need help from you, the community, and I hope I'll find some volunteers in helping us draft some ethical assessment questionnaires and DPIAs that can go on DMPonline. Excuse me. And that could perhaps be more succinct. The examples I've seen are just far too long. I don't know who has time to complete those, but I guess if they are required, they are required. So the issue I mentioned earlier is if I was to add the ethical reviews plus the DPIA to the current project as a new phase, as a new tab, we could end up with a bit too many tabs. Here's what the project will look like. You have your project details, your contributor, the plan overview, which is the actual template people fill in, the data management template, I mean. And then you have your ethical review questionnaires, your data protection impact assessment, and your research outputs plus functionality like share and download. Now we could think, we could add a menu here, the 3 dots where we can hide some certain functions. Apologies if you're hearing a background noise, and hide or provide the facility to expand and contract the menu so that it doesn't look too long. But again, I wonder how you feel about the standard DCC template becoming like this. Is it overbearing for the user, for the end user, do you think? So yeah, I would be curious to know what you think about this. Apologies. So we have time for questions at the end, but I could take a few questions now. And I also see lots of discussions coming in. Does anybody want to ask a question before we move on to further questions? Do you have comments? Okay, I'm just going to go through the comments.
Hi, Deanna. I'm going to have to leave now. But one thing I was wondering
thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead.
No, thanks to everybody there's lots of great comments in the chat. I haven't been able to get them all, but I think if we can incorporate that into like a Google Doc version of what you've presented, then we will just be able to come back to it. But I think everything that people are saying is very useful, and we will certainly make that into the shared version that we put out for wider comment. But yeah, thanks for everybody for listening and for the comments so far, and we'll continue the discussions offline.
Okay, Nina?
Sorry, I tend to be loud, but also I have to leave. So I'd like to just say 2 things, because I've been dealing a lot with DPAs and with due diligence. First of all, I would support that you do have to put this in. I don't know if anyone here has been dealing with due diligence at all, but effectively the restrictions in terms of national security have increased. There is a chilling effect outside of the EU if you're dealing with anyone, which means that these things suddenly become much more important. So firstly, I would definitely support it. But my question would be, why is it so long, what you're feeling that you have to add? Because when I've looked at any of our standard ethics review boards or any DPIAs, majority of them simply repeat DMP questions and or in a different format. So it seems to me that if you simply pull that information out of the first part of the DMP, that there actually is very little that isn't covered by a standard DMP. I might be wrong in this, but that is what I've seen over and over again.
Do you mean generic questions like, project abstract, or do you mean additional questions, other questions that are included?
I mean, and again, people can correct me, but I have dealt with some. I mean, even very much more specific questions, like exactly where the data is, where it's going to be kept, what location it is, those kind of data flow questions.
Okay.
Covered in the DMP. Perhaps we don't always ask them in as much detail, in which case what I am suggesting is, could you not add more completeness to those same areas in the full DMP, and then abstract only what a DMPI requires?
Okay. It is possible, yes, because we would want to avoid researchers having to answer pretty much the same question twice. Yeah. It will require some work. We will have to, identify which questions are. Either way, we have to come up with a standard data protection impact assessment form, right? We will all have to agree on one, and questions that are already in the data management plan could be pulled in, and additional questions will have to be answered by the researcher. Yeah, I think that's what you're suggesting.
That's what I'm suggesting. I may be over hopeful, but I believe that if you did an analysis, you would see vast overlap.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not suggesting that perhaps I gave the wrong impression when I said that they are quite long. I found them quite long because I saw 40 plus questions, and when I tried to download other ethics questionnaires, there were 90 plus questions. Some were generic questions. Some were questions that are already asked within the DMP, and again, we don't want the researcher to answer them twice, so it will require some work in putting these in place. And there were additional questions, but they were still relatively long. And if users find the DMP a burden, and the DMP will have at most 20 questions, you can imagine how they would react to having to answer an addition of 20 plus question. I'm only speculating. I'm just warning you about the number. That is all. I'm not saying it can be done. Is that okay, Nina?
Yes, of course. And I would support what everybody else is saying about it should definitely be optional and removable.
Yeah. Brenda. Thank you so much, Nina. Brenda.
Yeah, very similar to Nina. I put a point in the chat about mapping across the different tabs, precisely for that reason, to avoid duplication. So if there is sort of like a master list of questions, but then the main questions stay in the DMP, and it's only those questions that are over and above that would then potentially have a separate tab, it's definitely going to make it easier for the user. And less frustrating being asked the same question multiple times for obviously purposes. So any kind of mapping we can do to have one major focus and then the additional questions, as Nina says, appearing separately, I would 100% support that. Thank you.
Okay, but from here, is everybody supporting adding these questionnaires as standard questionnaires as part of the DMP? Am I right? Am I wrong?
It's still Brenda speaking here. I think from the point of view of a data management plan, I think it makes for me personally, it makes the tool look more complete, where it's optional if you do want to use it, but if you don't want to use it, then it's not applicable, rather than not having it in there at all, when it actually is quite a major part of a lot of studies, especially with AI coming up, which is going to, take greater consideration. I think the tool for me looks more complete, DMPonline, if there is some kind of acknowledgement that ethical review and DPIAs are part of that whole data landscape. Excellent.
Yeah. Okay. I think the answer is clear. I'm gonna read the chat in a moment, but I think we should move on to the funder templates. I want to stick to the originally advertised timetable in case people join for that particular talk, and we'll come back to discussion and go through the chat because we have 20 minutes for discussion. Nina, thank you very much. I'm sorry if you're leaving, but I got your point. Okay, so let me move very quickly through the funder templates, and hopefully I'll get a chance to give a quick demo of what we've implemented in DMPonline for one of the UKRI templates. Okay, so we normally spend the summer trying to update funder templates. it's been quite difficult to track down the relevant contacts. But there are 23 funder templates, all customizable. Although it can be quite confusing because each funder has their own guidelines, their own requirements. People have said, by people I mean you, the data stewards, have said that they actually appreciate being able to select funder templates from when they create plans. If you have new funders and new templates that don't appear on the system, please send them to us. I've been sent some from Sweden and Netherlands, but when I try to find a contact, I couldn't find one, and when I tried to find a template, I couldn't find one. It was more a matter, I got the impression, more a matter of the user being able to select the funder from the drop-down list. I wouldn't necessarily add them without a template. We either agree that they use the DCC template, or we add a page of guidance where we say if your funder doesn't have is not available from the drop-down list, that means they don't have a template. Please use DCC, generic DCC template. We have to do something like that so that it's clear to the user what they actually do. We can discuss this a bit more, but I'm curious what you think as well. If you know of templates in your own country that are available, please, and are not available on DMPonline, please send them to us. If you also have contacts within funders, please send them to us, because it can take a while to find the appropriate contact. I'm very quickly going to go through UKRI. I apologize if it seems a bit UK-centric. So open research, we're talking to people in the open research division at UKRI. They told us that they will start discussions in autumn about research data policy, reviewing it again, and they'll make possible tweaks on the DMP on their DMP guidance to improve clarity. I'm quoting word by word. And the really good news for us is they gave us contacts, the relevant contacts within each of the UK funders, and we're talking directly to them, and we're showing, here's the template, what do you think about it? And hopefully we will get it, we will get this fixed over October and November. I'm hoping it can happen faster. So if you remember, we were discussing I'm going to put this down, apologies. If you remember, we were discussing how we would implement the UKRI templates and the workflow between the funding system and DMPonline. And we said we're going to turn them all into two-phase template with an initial DMP containing the 500 words or 1,500 words, it can be as much as that, in the funding system, and a detailed DMP, which consists of the existing questions. The initial DMP will be submitted to the UKRI funding system, and the detail of final DMP to be written in DMPonline and completed more leisurely whenever is needed. And some funders actually request NERC, for example, ask for the detailed DMP to be submitted as a project deliverable. So essentially, that's what we're doing at the moment, and we're talking to funders, each individual funder. And this is what it looks like, and the initial DMP will look like. This is an example of ESRC template. So the plan consists of one question. We would have a word limit. You have 500 words remaining, and as the typer, as the user starts typing, the word count is displayed. All instructions by ESRC will appear on the guidance section. In TFS, I'll show you in a moment, it appears above the question. And we will also provide the copy to clipboard function, and this will be copied into TFS. We would love an integration. We would love to be able to generate an API which feeds the plan into TFS, but this will take a while, and the TFS itself is in beta stage, and as I mentioned, they're still reviewing their own procedures. But fingers crossed, in the long run, we will get there. We are working together, which is the good news. Now, what the ESRC data management template looks like in TFS is like this. So when you first apply, you get, for the data management and sharing section, it's essentially this. And if you expand this guidance, what the assessors are looking for in your response, you get this text above the box. In DMPonline the text will be entered here, and the guidance is to the right, as you're already familiar to from using the system. Okay, so that is basically it. And the questions that I have from you, the big question is, do you feel this is similar enough? So the initial DMP, is it similar enough to what is in TFS? It may be a silly question, but it's worth considering because people are, using the system. There is another question that I have, and that is to do with ethics. In TFS, there is a section, a separate section on it that asks about ethics, and people are often saying, and I've heard this from some data stewards as well as researchers, often say that actually shouldn't this be part of the data management plan? In which case we may have to add under initial DMP, we may have to add the ethics section as well. I could stop sharing stop sharing for a moment the presentation. I'll show you what I mean. Let me see if I'm still logged in into TFS. I'll log in for a moment. I guess you're all familiar with TFS, but I better share the screen so we know what we're talking about. Okay. Okay. It won't take long, I hope. Here it is. So this is a DAF application for an EPSRC grant. This is the data management and sharing section. Complete. Okay. Box, 500 words remaining. The guidelines above, you can contract it. Okay, let me get back. Okay, and here is the ethics and responsible research and innovation. And some people have said that this perhaps should be part of the data management plan. Guidance above. See if I can show you a sample plan. It's the ESRC template. Okay, so this is what it will look, the initial DMP looks like on the, excuse me. It looks like on the live server, on the test server for DMPonline. And if we are to add the ethics section as well, it would possibly appear under this data management plan and sharing. It is a bit confusing, but yeah, I would like to hear what you say, what you think about this. I'm going to very quickly show you a sample plan for. Okay, this is on the test server, by the way, so I can. Sorry. Okay, ethics and DPIA, and this is what the plan with generic DMP, ethical review, questionnaires. I've only added one section so far. Data protection, research output share. I just highlighted the issue of too many tabs, but there are unbearably many. Okay, I'm stopping my presentation and we can now have time for discussion. Okay, while I stop sharing, Dawn, would you mind going through questions on chat and taking questions, because I temporarily need to go and grab my my laptop charger. Apologies, I had to move out of the room.
I think we could just start at the bottom here. It's Richard Grimes' question. I think that makes sense, but I don't know much. Oh, sorry, no, the Muriel Patrick's one. So any specific thoughts about the AHRC who seek to squash data management into the section on ethics and responsible research? Does anyone have any thoughts on that point? Yes, Brenda?
I think from the AHRC's perspective, the fact that they've done that is interesting. And does that sort of not give us an inkling as to how they see the relationship between the two? So that therefore then makes me think about Diana's question about the data management plan bit and where should ethics sit underneath that? Well, if you were speaking from the AHRC's perspective, they would probably say yes, by the fact that they squashed it together. So that just might give you an indication of the relationship between the two. And then I think my only other point is, say, around the ESRC, data sharing and how important informed consent is to data sharing. And so it's quite difficult to take ethics and informed consent out of your data sharing activity, and maybe some kind of prompt that shows that there is a direct relationship between the two, rather than thinking about them as separate considerations. Because if we don't have informed consent to share, then we can't share the data. So to me, there's a strong relationship between the two, and anything that we can do to bring that knowledge together is probably going to be easier than somebody, you know, what we're finding in Leeds is that people are thinking about data sharing separate to ethics, and it's not until they come at the end and we ask them about informed consent and then consent form wording that they make the link between the two, and often that's far too late. So anything we can do to encourage the thinking of data sharing directly in relation to informed consent, which happens at ethical review stage, anything we can do to bring that knowledge together is going to be helpful in terms of publishing and sharing data later down the line.
Okay, thank you very much, Brenda. That's really useful. Anybody else has similar thoughts, disagrees? Okay, I mean, if you agree with that, I can do I can add the ethical section of ESRC or HRC or other funders under this, and we provide them with the same facility, word count and a copy to clipboard, so that people can copy in the right section and TFS. For the rest, the detailed DMP, we're trying to get the representatives of existing funders in to review them. They are still very useful, and users, as far as I understand, prefer them because they have clear guidance and far more focused questions. And for example, MRC, in TFS, the funding system, apologies, MRC are still using their long template, which we have already updated this summer, by the way, in DMPonline. And they're saying to users, please copy and paste. They have a wider word limit, 1,500, and they're saying to users, aka researchers, please copy and paste, preferably with questions, your answers into TFS. Now, if we copy them and pasting them with questions, the questions will bite into the word count, and that's something we have to discuss with them. Also, if users give answers to questions, the answers might not work in isolation without the question. I hope you see what I mean. I'm not finding quite the right words to explain here, but essentially it makes sense to copy the question because otherwise the answer in isolation may not make sense. So we'll have to find a way of clarifying with MRC whether they mean 1,500 words including questions or 1,500 words excluding questions. But MRC have made it clear that they can't cope without the detailed template. So they will have a detailed template, even in the initial DMP will be question and answer. And we'll have to figure out how to do the word count. This is something that I should mention. We're also adding, encouraging researchers like Innovate UK to generate templates for themselves, even if they are very, very basic. They are not using, some of them are not using TFS, but it doesn't matter. I still think it would be valuable to have a template. It would also be valuable to have standardization, at least for the initial DMP, the one that goes into the funding system, but we're a long way from that. Okay, I think I'm not seeing any questions coming in, so let's go very quickly through the chat. Okay. Chris, can you say when the proposed updates for DCC template will be released? If we send you a template and give you a fortnight to give input, do you think that's too tight? Nicola, I don't know if you're still here. We can release it anytime. We can hit publish now. Okay, but we need input from you. You may not like what's there. And this is why we had this consultation with you.
Yeah, I think good morning all. I think from our point of view, there's a couple of questions that kind of relate into this. We're sort of watching the sort of suggested proposals to the standard DCC template, but we've also got our own, well, we've got our own institutional template, which we were before this discussion already considering amending. And so could I ask, it's a slightly different question, but could I ask with institutional where we've customized templates, is it better to edit the existing template, or is it preferable to create a new template, version 2, with new questions and new guidance? Can you offer any advice on which method is better?
I think I don't think it's radically different. I would be inclined to update the existing template. But given that we also, the reason for that being that you have versions and you can see the evolution of the template. It is entirely up to you. If you feel that the template is so different that we are also adding new questionnaires, it's entirely different than you publish a new template. For the initial phase where we're editing questionnaires, I would stick to the same template because you keep track of the evolution of a template. You may want to generate a whole new template, copy it because you can't copy it when we add new phases, like new phases. What I'm referring to when adding new questionnaires.
Brilliant.
That's when you may think, I think it's different enough.
And can I just ask one quick follow-up question? If we do go ahead and either make a new version or edit the existing version, does it make any difference then to us being able to look at the plans which were created on the previous version? Can we still open a plan that was created, say, last year with the old questions, let's say?
Yeah.
It won't make any difference to that.
No.
So those plans are just as they are. We can
Yeah.
open, we can read them, but any new plans, we'll see them on the we can see them on the new version.
Yeah. Yes,
Brilliant.
that's correct.
Thank you.
All plans won't be affected.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, Nina made a suggestion. I suggest we add pre-proposal, post-proposal for PG. I'm not sure what that refers to. I think she probably meant 2 different phases. I'll follow up with her. Funding call URL would be great. Thanks, Philippa. Funding status needs to continue to have an option to reflect the fact that not all projects have external funding. Also, some long-running projects may have multiple chunks of funding from different sources, and other option is always useful. Correct. Thank you for that. Am I correct that changes to the project details page affect all templates? It would be nice to see. That's right. Yes, Richard. I mentioned this. Sorry if we put it under updates to DCC template, but I mentioned that the project details applies to all templates. That's not just for DCC. Everything has ethical concerns. So this is Nina Lewin saying that everything has ethical concerns. We have a similar point on our forms and it failed. So I think we should, it's possibly another support for adding the ethical section as well. Also add supervisor and field worker to the roles. This is the contributor roles. Okay, we'll look into that. Would be good, this is Zosia. Hi, Zosia. Would be good if the roles aligned with credit. Right. Okay. We'll look into that. That's very useful suggestion. The specific phrasing of ethical concerns sounds to me like a euphemism for this research should probably not take place rather than the more normal situation of there being ethical issues which needs to be considered. Mariel, sorry. I think you mean I think you mean that it's an obvious question. I don't know if Mariel is still here. Okay, I'll clarify this with you, but yeah, we are going to add an explanation in the first place. The reason why the field was there, by the way, is to alert research departments that there is a plan that they may need to pay close attention to, and to be able to actually retrieve to retrieve from usage statistics the plans with ethical concerns. That's basically what the purpose of the field was. Okay, Philippa, supervisor could be very useful. Okay, thank you. That's for the roles of collaborators. Okay, Teresa, a brief comment on manual project IDs. Manual project IDs can be a bit dangerous because they can change between different copies of a DMP and other documents about a project. Not every university has its own CRIS system where all projects are registered. Yeah. Okay, I still think it's useful to have a manual project ID, but yeah, we've taken that on board. Contributor role standard. So Joachim sent us a list from credit. Mariel is asking everybody, what would be the feeling about a question asking whether researchers will be using any data or metadata standards, ideally with a link to info about this? I think we already have a question similar to that, Mariel. Yeah, I'll have to follow up with you on that one. Our past experience suggests that researchers don't always mean the same by repository as we do. This is to do with the suggestion to add the question about repository. This term might refer to a local department data store rather than anything intended for long-term preservation. So putting it in the storage section runs the risk of confusing people. Ah, I see. So it's where it's classified. Again, everything we add will have to have very good tooltips. There are a lot more very useful questions in here, which we won't have time to go through. Let's see if I can catch a few questions towards the end. Okay, Miriam, this is not to do with templates. This is to do with the plan creation wizard. Okay, so I was wondering whether the previously discussed update on the create plan wizard will be effective. The missed tick box for no funder associated is still our main issue for users. We're waiting for just the list of available templates, with the institutional template being the first option to be implemented. Okay. When we develop features now, we spend some time writing feature specification and pondering about these options. So we'll look into that. I hope Don and Glenys, you took a note of that. We'll download all of these comments. So what's going to happen next is for us to send you a version of the proposed DCC template. I think 2 or 3 weeks should be enough to for you to provide feedback. You can either provide feedback on a Word document, or we can simply do a Google questionnaire. Again, we haven't quite figured out how to do this to make it effective. And you can also email us. It really doesn't matter, but we have to send you a version of the template where you can also see the guidance, because I think this is the important thing. You can also see what background information we're giving the people and what questions we're asking them to consider. And once we have this period of consultation over, we can hopefully publish an updated version of the DCC template. With funders, it's ongoing discussions with them. One last thing, please save the dates. So we have on the 22nd of October, we're going to discuss the development priorities for 2024-25. On the 3rd of December, we're going to look at organization data in DMPonline, including use of ROR data. We'll have the ROR integration ready by then. But I'm referring to the more general topic of organization data in DMPonline, because some users, some data stewards have asked us for if they could upload a list of departments to DMPonline. Assign users to departments, so the users can assign themselves to departments. And the reason for this being the ability to build statistics, usage statistics for departmental use of DMPonline. There's in 17th of February 2025, there is a workshop as part of IDCC, half-a-day workshop, free to attend. Unfortunately, is in person. And it will look at interoperability mainly and standardization. On 8th of April 2025, we haven't decided the topic. Then we have our community event on in May as last year, and I've inserted the link to the community where the dates are. One last comment came in. Oh, Glenys just sent you a link. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing. So let me know, how do you feel? Does anybody have any urgent questions? Was the day clear? going to the bottom. Okay. Oh, thank you. I'm really pleased to hear that you found this session useful. So see you in October. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Diana. Thanks,
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.